Well, welcome in, everybody, to the LSU Sports Insider Podcast. I'm Zach Ewing, here live at Tiger Stadium, joined by Scott Rabelais, of course, the Advocate's lead sports columnist. And we are here in the aftermath of LSU's 23-7 victory over Louisiana Tech. We are brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac, and we appreciate everybody hanging out with us late on this Saturday night. Well, Scott, it was supposed to be like a heroic homecoming for LSU after a big win in Clemson, South Carolina last week. And it was. I mean, it was victorious at least. But this LSU team kind of left this game maybe with more questions than they entered it.
Yeah, when you gave the score, it just sounded as underwhelming as it was. It was a strange game in that I never thought LSU was in danger of losing the game, falling victim to an upset or something like that. But they never could put La Tech away. They never could really impose their will, never could cash in on some of the opportunities they had. Case in point, the very end of the game, their last scoring drive, they get a penalty, gives them first a goal at the 3. They net 1 yard on 3 plays, field goal to smartly go up 16 points at the end. But, there were 5+ touchdown favorite. I mean, it should have been much more than that. And Brian Kelly said that in the postgame just now. He was saying that they didn't coach well enough, they didn't execute well enough, and they have to do some improvement against with Florida coming in next week, a team that's talented, but obviously coming off a much more disappointing game, losing to South Florida at home. So it's a hard to define. What do you say about LSU at this point? Maybe they're not as great as everyone thought they were after beating Clemson, but maybe not as bad as they looked at times tonight either.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, you want to win the game first and foremost, and as you mentioned, LSU's next opponent was unable to do that in a situation where they were big favorites. So Get that out of the way. LSU won the game, but that did not sound, from what I heard a little bit of the beginning of the press conference from up in the press box, did not sound like a victorious press conference. I mean, Brian Kelly knew that LSU did not play well tonight. I don't know if there were outright boos from the Tiger Stadium crowd, but there was sort of some grumbling and groaning at times, especially with the offense. And I don't know. I do want to start with the defense, and you all can leave your comments. Patrick is producing the show for us. He'll show the comments and let me know via text what they are, and we can kind of read them live here. But I do want to start with the defense because I think that they deserve some credit. And let's talk about the unit that won LSU the game. Second straight week. I mean, this just looks like an elite defense that we haven't seen at LSU in close to 10 years now.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and they. I think Tech punted 9 times. LSU didn't force any turnovers, but they really there was that one late drive which you're gonna have. Almost everyone's gonna have one drive in a game, even a very, very good defense. That things are just gonna work out right. And Tech took advantage of a coverage bust, and they scored on a 33-yard touchdown pass late in the fourth quarter to make it 20-7 at that point. But overall, LSU played very well. They only gave up like 56 yards net rushing after holding Clemson to 31 yards rushing, I believe, last week. Yeah. So the defense giving up 17 points in 2 games is pretty darn good in modern college football. They look like the strength of the team. And going back to preseason practice, Zach, there were a lot of times when you're like, and they're busting through, they're making plays, they're disrupting the offensive line, and you knew the offensive line had some issues, and those were compounded during the game by the Braylon Moore injury. But this looks like a very good defense, and again, right now looks like the strength of this team, which is, while you saw good signs in the preseason, that's not exactly what I expected to be saying about LSU 2 games in.
No, and I mean, I think, and we'll talk about the offense here in a minute, but if you were counting on one unit to sort of figure it out throughout the year, it would probably be the offense. So maybe this is a good thing for LSU. The Weeks brothers are all over the place. So there was one series where they combined on a sack, and I think West Weeks also had a run stuff on that series. Harold Perkins looks like his old self. The secondary looks excellent. I mean, Tech is not a great offensive team. They only scored 24 points on Southeastern last week. And, so maybe this isn't the sternest test, and apologizes for the background noise here if they take care of the field. But, we saw Clemson struggle a little bit offensively against Troy today. So maybe Clemson's offense is sort of a step slow also. But you still have to give credit to you mentioned 9 punts. I think there were 11 possessions, not counting a kneel down at the end of the first half. Tech had the one touchdown, and then I think were they stopped on a 4th down maybe, or maybe the 11th one was the kneel down. I can't remember. And they basically stopped them every time, but one. Yeah. And so just suffocating defense. That's something LSU is going to be able to hang its hat on. Now let's move to the offense. We just have you for a few minutes. The crux of this, Rab, is the running game. I mean, we saw a couple of big runs. Harlem Berry had a really nice run at the end. Xavion Thomas, the wide receiver, got in there and had a nice run in the first half. Other than that, this team can't run the ball.
I think I have a math right, and it's always dangerous counting on a journalist to do math, but I think I have this right. For the game, LSU had 34 carries for 128 yards rushing. That includes sack yardage, of course, in college football. So if you take away the 2 long runs, that's 2 runs for 89 yards. That's 32 carries for 39 yards. Take away, I believe I have this right, Garrett Nussmeier was sacked 3 times for minus 27 yards. That means 56 yards on the remaining 29 carries. That's 1.9 yards per carry. That will not get it done.
No.
That is not good. I'm sure that is the basis of Brian Kelly's frustration with the team and with their performance in this game. Now, again, the offensive line, early on, they lost Braylon Moore, who was the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week. He was lost to a knee injury. An ankle injury. Yeah, went in for an X-ray in the first half. Came out in street clothes in the second half. Brian Kelly said he's going to have an MRI tomorrow, along with Trey Green, the tight end, for a knee. So the tight ends did not help the blocking either too much. So he's not pleased with that, and they shouldn't be. Yes, they broke some big plays, and you have to count those, but consistent down in, down out. LSU just couldn't push, a very game but outmatched Louisiana Tech team off the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Louisiana Tech, we do need to say that they do have a good defense. We saw that tonight.
Oh, they tackled very well. I thought
they shut out Southeastern last week. I know that's an FCS opponent. It's still hard to shut somebody out. And last year they had one of the best defenses in Conference USA. So this is a legitimately good defense for a group of 5 team.
Right.
But that's just it. It's a group of 5 team. You are going to see defenses just that good and maybe better throughout SEC play. Starting next week, I mean, I think Florida still has a pretty good defense for all the other problems they may have. And LSU's got to get it figured out. We'll see about Braylon Moore. But you know what? Injuries happen. You have to deal with those. Every team has to deal with those.
And Brian Kelly said, obviously put in DJ Chester, who was the starting center last year, has been their kind of utility player on the offensive line. Remember last week he filled in at left tackle for Adams on a couple of plays when he went out. He said, look, the guy started 13 games last year. He's good enough to help them get the job done. And, it's a lot of things, as Kelly said, on the other 4 offensive linemen and the tight ends, blocking. So there, there's plenty of blame to go around if you're looking for blame in this game, where LSU as a 5+ touchdown favorite didn't, struggled in a lot of areas in this game. There's some good, there's some bad, but those things have to improve. And as you said, your teams don't exist in a vacuum. They get better, they get worse over the course of the season, and I think this offense definitely has a chance and the tools to improve and become much more effective. But they didn't show it tonight, and I wonder, Zach, I want kind of your opinion. This was going through my head. All this emphasis on starting 1-0 against Clemson, all the signs of the T-shirts before the game, and you do that, and you pull off the big win on the road, one of LSU's biggest road wins to start the season ever. First time they ever played in a top 10 game to start the season on the road, and they won the game. I wonder if that took something off of the effort, the intensity in this game.
I don't think there's any question. I mean, it's just such a natural letdown spot between that and then on the other side of the sandwich, so to speak, is Florida, your SEC opener, and such a big game that you kind of have in the back of your head that's coming up. And so I don't, we're talking about 19, 20-year-old kids. Was their focus where it needed to be in practice this week? I wouldn't be surprised if the answer to that question was no. And I even think the fans a little bit, you beat Clemson in this game that's billed as this huge top 10 matchup. You go to number 3 in the country, and it just sort of all of a sudden you come out here and just expect La Tech to kind of roll over. Instead, they get a pick on the first drive. It's only 7-0 at the end of a quarter, and everybody's kind of going, what's going on here? So we need to let you go as you have writing to do, but I want to leave with this, Rab. What letter grade would you give the Tigers tonight?
Well, certainly I'm going to give them a failing grade for the Clemson game, like Dabo Swinney did, saying they had a 65 or a D, I guess, who would be in college.
That's Koki Riley saying hi.
I would say a C or a C minus. I mean, there were good things about the game, obviously, especially on defense, special teams for the most part. Though Ramos missed another field goal, but a lot to be desired on offense. They should have put up something in the should have been 34-7 or 37-7 or something like that, and it wasn't anything close to that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, apologies for the tractor behind us. Hopefully, you can still hear us. That got hot there. They were right on our tail there. Luckily, we're just far enough on the sideline. Live here at Tiger Stadium. So LSU,
this is live, folks. That's what happens when things are live.
LSU beats Louisiana Tech 23-7. We'll say an underwhelming victory, but look, big picture, they're 2-0. I think every LSU fan in the stadium, all 100,000 of them tonight, would have signed up for 2-0 with two, victories where you were taking knees at the end of the game.
I think the point to leave with, if I may, there are 100,000 people here tonight. The vast majority did not expect LSU to be 2-0 at this point. Having lost 5 straight season openers and going to Clemson on the road, and Clemson was expected to be so good. We still don't know how good Clemson is. They had to come back from a 16-0 deficit, right, to win today against Troy. So you still don't know, but it's but being 2-0 is the thing. There are things to work on, and it's always I think coaches are always pleased to be able to win, but still have something to get on the team about, especially going into. I think they will have everyone's attention going into this week of practice leading up to the Florida game.
And maybe that's the silver lining. We know, Florida's going to come in here as a wounded animal, and we'll see if LSU can kind of do the same thing despite winning tonight. So we'll let Scott Ravelli get back up to the press box and write. But thanks for stopping by, Scott.
Exactly.
All right, he's going to set the mic down. Reed Darcy's over there. He may join us for a minute, but I'm going to go through some stats, some play-by-play here, just as we recap LSU's 23-7 victory. Comment there from Adam. O-line has not played well. Injuries are an issue, but they can't run block worth anything. Yeah, I think that you're 100% correct on all that. It's pretty dreary in the run game. Rab had those stats. Again, LSU finishes with 128 yards running. That doesn't look bad, but a couple of those were big plays, and one of them was from Xavier Thomas, the wide receiver. Here's Reed Darcy, one of our beat writers at The Advocate, to talk about this one. And you've got the box score in front of you too, Reed.
I do. What you want to see?
I'm just looking at running. I mean, I think that's the crux of what the consternation is here about LSU's offense.
It didn't feel like, same thing last year. It didn't feel like they really tried to establish the run and try to stick with it. Garrett Nussmeier attempted, if you give me a second here, he attempted 41 passes, and in a game like this, that's a little high, not only because he should be playing, 2, maybe 3 quarters, but as this
that's about the third time that's happened. They're zigzagging through, so apologies for that. Yeah.
So I was saying he attempted 41 passes, and that's a little too high for a game like this. Not only because he's supposed to play quarters, but because LSU should be able to control a game like this on ground, and they didn't really try to. Maybe it had something to do with Braylon Moore going down. Maybe it didn't, but the rushing attack looked a lot like it did last year tonight, I thought.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think maybe we would be quicker to dismiss this as just early season figuring things out with a new offensive line. The same problem last year.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's a play like at a certain point, Joe Sloan seems like he almost wants to abandon the run. We talked in Thursday's LSU Insider, our preview podcast, about, hey, let's see Michael Van Buren in the backup offense and see what they've got. Never got to see it because it was 20-7 with 5 minutes left. Like, you needed a drive to put this game away.
Yep.
And Harlan Berry provided a highlight on that drive, by the way, and allowed LSU to kind of run most of the clock out, get the last field goal, and kind of put the game away. So it's
the offense just didn't have the same rhythm it had last week. You saw them mix in the screens, the quick passes. We didn't see much of that tonight. The offense, it was just overall hard to come by. I thought Garrett Nussmeier was under duress quite a bit. He had to drop back, and it looked like he didn't have really too many good options open, from his receivers. And so he had to hang on to the ball, and the Louisiana Tech defense, give it credit, it did a good job, kind of putting him under some duress there and forcing him into some difficult positions. So not overall a very promising performance from LSU. And I think Brian Kelly, after a game like this, I don't know if Rab talked about it at all, but after a game like this, that was as animated as I've seen him since he's been here, for what it's worth.
And after a win. I mean,
after a win.
Yeah, like Rab and I did talk about it. I heard just the beginning of the press conference. He did not sound like a coach who had just won a game. No, not in any way. I do want to. It's not a disaster. Like, LSU, 365 yards is not great, but they were 9 of 16 on third down. They continue to seem to get that done. I do wonder too, is the game plan a little vanilla tonight after what you showed against Clemson? Don't want to give Florida anything else on film. So there's definitely something to be said for that. But ultimately, a lot of room for improvement. Now, on the other side of the ball, the defense, oh boy, if they're going to be this good all year long, LSU's ceiling is very high.
Yeah, I'm writing a sidebar on the defense tonight, and I took a second there to contrast it to what the defense looked like in week 2 of last year. I looked it up. The numbers escaping me. I believe Nichols last year in week 2 rushed for about 178 yards. I could be getting that wrong, but either way, night and day, the defense between this game this year and the game last year. They forced the issue like they did against Clemson. The run defense was great. The pass rush was great. The coverage in the secondary was great. Louisiana Tech could not do anything. They punted on their first 8 drives. All of them ended in a punt. Some of that was a little conservative by Louisiana Tech, as you pointed out up there. But the defense, you couldn't ask much more from the defense. The only thing they gave up was that touchdown at the end, and that was kind of coverage bust with a couple of the backups were in. So that's not a huge concern. The defense was really, really, really good, just like it was last week, and that's a sign of encouragement for LSU going forward.
I think the lawnmower's coming back, so fair warning. It's about to get loud again. But yeah, you're right. I mean, part of this was Louisiana Tech, to me, was playing to not get blown out. There was a lot of that. Like, it's 4th and 4 from the LSU 41. It was still a 10-0. Actually, I think it was maybe still 7-0 at that point. If you're Louisiana Tech, I mean, what are you doing? Like, if you're a 37-point underdog, are you coming in here to try to win the game and pull a stunner, or are you just trying to come in and save face?
I think part of it
felt like a save face.
Part of it is because they don't trust their offense. The offense doesn't seem like it can do much of anything. It didn't do a whole lot against Southeastern last week. The defense is what's shown through in that game. So maybe it's part of, they just want to play the field position game, trust their defense, and not put their offense in too difficult of situations like 4th and short and high pressure conversions. Maybe that's it. Or maybe they just wanted to be as conservative as possible.
There was a little bit of a saving face. Now, I will say this. It was 10-0 for a long time.
It was.
And if LSU's offense makes a single mistake, a turnover deep in their own end or something, this game could have gotten tight in a hurry. And maybe that's what Tech was sort of banking on. The only mistake to that point LSU's offense made was the interception on like the second play of the game, which was, a deep ball tipped. Good play by the D-back, but not something that's a crushing mistake. Like, LSU didn't make any of those. So the offense, I think, does deserve credit for that. And but to me, this is it's
not encouraging.
It's a defense that is showing you that LSU could be really, really good this year. It's an offense that is showing you it's very much still a work in progress.
We expected to see Michael Van Buren on the podcast earlier this week. That was one of the first things I mentioned. Hey, I want to see how Michael Van looks. I think it's telling that we didn't see any of him at all, and that LSU had to leave its starters in the game for the whole time. And I think that's not good. That's not ideal for a situation like this, for a game like tonight. And as you see, a couple starters got injured. We don't know exactly how serious they are. Brian Kelly said that both Braylon Moore and Trades Green are going to get MRIs tomorrow. Braylon Moore has a knee injury. Trades Green has an ankle injury, so we'll see what comes from that. But that's 2 really important starters banged up going into the Florida game.
Yeah, and it is an SEC game, so we will get injury reports this week on those guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. It feels to me doubtful that either plays next week. I mean, those look like more serious injuries than just I'm back next week.
We saw Braylon Moore trying to come back into the game. There was one point early in the second half where he had his helmet on and he was doing some snaps. He was doing some pass blocking stuff. So it looked like maybe if this were a tight SEC game, maybe he would have tried to give it a go. But yeah, he never got back into the game after that. And Trades Green, it was so late by then, you didn't, there was no point in bringing him back. And he was on crutches in a boot on the sideline at the end of the game for what it's worth.
So we'll see. Braylon Moore may be a better chance of coming back than Trades Green. That's speculation. So, take it for what it's worth. We will get injury reports this week. Reed needs to get back to writing.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you one more question, just like I asked Rab. This team's 2-0. I think if you had to give a letter grade for tonight, it's like a low C, maybe even a high D. Like, it wasn't great. But the fact of the matter is, football games are pass-fail to a certain extent, and they're 2-0. And I think you kind of just shrug this one off and move on.
I guess so, but there are a couple concerning things that you need to take into the Florida week. One is the offensive line. How healthy is it? How healthy is Braylon Moore? How can it gel and play without him if they have to go without him against Florida? And then the rushing game, with or without Braylon Moore, it wasn't dictating the pace of the game like it should have in a game like this. And so I think that's a much bigger concern than anything we saw from Nuss tonight or anything we saw from the passing offense. This offense needs to be really balanced. In order to do that, it needs a trustworthy, consistent rushing attack, and that did not show up tonight. So that's a concern going into the Florida game.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we'll let Reed get to it. He's got some writing to finish. Thanks to him, and we will wrap things up on the LSU Insider postgame show here. Just a quick look. We'll go back through sort of a blow-by-blow of this one, LSU's 23-7 victory over Louisiana Tech. The first scoring of the game happened in the final minute of the first quarter. That was a 7-yard touchdown pass from Garrett Nussmeier to Nick Anderson. That was a 3rd and 5 play from the Louisiana Tech 7. Tech made him work for it. It was a 98-yard, 11-play drive that took nearly 6 minutes. LSU had thrown an interception and missed a field goal on its first 2 drives, and so they put together this long drive after getting backed up at the 2, and put together the touchdown drive to make it 7-0. I mentioned Louisiana Tech punting from the +41 on 4th and 4, making LSU go the length of the field again. They did it again, 13 plays, 85 yards. This time having to settle for a field goal. It was a 23-yard field goal from Damian Ramos after Garrett Nussmeier was incomplete on 3rd and goal. That made it 10-0. It stayed 10-0 until halftime. LSU only had 5 possessions in the first half. They had to go so long on some of those, they ended up punting on their final possession. So a missed field goal, a punt, a long touchdown drive, and a long field goal drive. It's just 10-0. LSU then punts on its first third quarter possession too, and didn't get back on the board until the final 2 minutes, I should say, of the third quarter. A 3-yard touchdown run from Caden Durham, again on 3rd down, 3 yards out. He broke the plane, gets in and makes it 17-0. For all intents and purposes, this game was probably over at that point. LSU adds a couple of fourth quarter field goals, one early in the fourth quarter from Damian Ramos, a 46-yarder, and then another late after the Harlem Berry run we talked about. That was just a 19-yard chip shot with 1:55 to go. That makes it 23-7. In between those two, Louisiana Tech scored its touchdown, a 33-yard touchdown pass from Blake Baker. I assume no relation to the LSU defensive coordinator. Kind of funny coincidence, from Blake Baker to Devin Gandy, who was wide open on like a blown coverage 3rd and 17 play. Somebody got crossed up. He's wide open on the sideline, runs in for the touchdown. That made it 20-7. And honestly, the game wasn't completely over at that point. So it's LSU kind of had to run the clock out. They add the other field goal and make it 23-7. So we talked about some of the stats. We can go through them now to wrap things up. Garrett Nussmeier was 26 of 41 for 237 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Harlem Berry, the freshman, led LSU in rushing, 6 carries for 56 yards, including that 43-yard run at the end of the game, twisting and turning and breaking tackles. Xavier Thomas, 6 carries, 54 yards. That included a 48-yard run that set up LSU's first touchdown. Caden Durham only 29 yards on 13 carries. So not a productive night for Caden Durham. He did have the only rushing touchdown for LSU. And then on the receiving side, Berrien Brown, 8 catches, 94 yards. He also had a 15-yard run. Aaron Anderson, 73 yards receiving on 8 catches. Xavier Thomas, 4 catches for 35 yards. He also had a fumble, but it went out of bounds, luckily, for LSU. On the defensive side, West Weeks led LSU with 10 tackles. He also had half a sack. Jack Pyburn, Whit Weeks, and Jordan Gilbert also each had half a sack. Davon Keys, 9 tackles next on the list for LSU. So LSU beats Louisiana Tech 23-7. They are back in action next Saturday here at Tiger Stadium to take on Florida. Quick look around the SEC. Florida loses 18-16 to South Florida. So Billy Napier, head coach of Florida, is going to come in to this game back under a lot of pressure. It kind of alleviated some of that pressure last year, with a strong finish to the year that included a home victory there in Gainesville over LSU. So the Tigers will try to return the favor, put him right back on the hot seat. That would drop Florida to 1-2 if LSU could pull that off next week. elsewhere in the SEC, couple of big non-conference wins. 3 of them actually, by my count. Oklahoma beats Michigan. I believe it was 24-13. So that is a feather in the cap of the SEC. Oklahoma, who knows exactly where they'll finish in the SEC standings. Maybe they're a contender for the SEC title or college football playoff, but most coming into the year had them as a mid-tier SEC team. They beat one of the top Big Ten teams in Michigan. Then Missouri beats Kansas 42-31 in a rivalry renewed there at Mizzou. And that's another, look, Kansas is a Big 12 contender. Missouri, again, a mid-pack SEC team. So at the end of the year, you'll look back at that one, and that'll be a feather in the cap for the SEC. And then maybe the biggest surprise of the 3, Mississippi State beat Arizona State tonight, 24-20 down in Starkville, or up in Starkville. And that's a big win for the SEC. Again, Arizona State, maybe one of the Big 12 favorites. Mississippi State, a bottom team in the SEC, gets that win. Looks good for the SEC. So Florida loses, but elsewhere around the SEC. And Vanderbilt also beat Virginia Tech, or at least they were beating them last I checked. So, and that's on the road. Another win for the SEC. That's a team LSU plays later in the year. So SEC showing its strength this weekend. LSU, a little bit of a letdown, but they do beat Louisiana Tech 23-7. And that is going to do it for us here on the LSU Insider postgame show. We're brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac. My thanks to our producer, Patrick McGee, to Scott Rabelais and Reed Darcy for dropping by. And thanks to you for hanging out late on a Saturday night. We'll see you back with the next LSU Insider episode on Tuesday. So look for that on the same LSU Insider channels. Hit the like button on your way out. Leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of LSU's 23-7 victory over Louisiana Tech. Thanks and good night.